All right, let's talk about this whole situation where George Lucas felt betrayed by Disney, and let's just talk about people's response to this, because I'm seeing people on social media and making videos and stuff about the whole situation, and some of them are acting like they are personally hurt. They're acting like they are personally hurt because they find out that George Lucas felt betrayed by Disney. And it's just completely amazing. And they're sitting there saying that there's no way that you should be able to side with Disney over this. There's asking or questioning why Bob Iger decided to release his book that has this information in there where Bob Iger claims that George Lucas felt betrayed. And what's more interesting about it is that these same very people are the ones who sit there and they chastise Disney for not being able to own up to their mistakes. Where here's Bob Iger pointing out something that in a way could be looked at as owning up to a mistake, or maybe not handling the situation as properly as it could be, and they're jumping on his case about it. They're acting like Bob Iger is some evil deviant who purposely manipulated George and is now bragging about it when that is not the case. He's just pointing out the facts of what happened. This is the deal we made. This is apparently how George Lucas felt after the fact. And it's just absolutely ridiculous. And even more so ridiculous is that these people, some of them even admit that Bob Iger, and it all stems around, George Lucas felt betrayed over Star Wars because The Force Awakens came out and it offered nothing new. It offered nothing new to the Star Wars story. It's just a retreading of A New Hope. And George Lucas had written treatments that Disney bought from George Lucas, and he felt betrayed that they didn't use those treatments. Even though it was clearly stated that they didn't have to use the treatments. Even though it was clearly stated that they were under no obligations to use those treatments. Now, it would be one thing if Disney had made promises to George Lucas and they did not keep those promises, but there were no promises made to George Lucas that were not kept, at least as far as my understanding goes. So how does that make Disney the bad guys? Jeremy Jahns even used a scenario where he goes, well, let's just pretend if you agree with Disney, if you don't see what Disney did wrong, then you can no longer complain about any shithead boss that you had. And he used the excuse, he goes, and I'm paraphrasing, he goes, it'll be like you put in for vacation time, and then you make all the plans, arrangements, you spend money and all sort of stuff, and then when it's about time for you to go on vacation, the boss is making a schedule the week before, and he goes, you know what, you can't go on vacation, we're going to keep your handy push on the schedule, so therefore you're out all that money, which is an absolutely ridiculous scenario to make, or analogy to make, given the fact that isn't even close to what happened with Disney. The more closer analogy would be, and I put this on Jeremy Jahns' in the comment section in this video, and it would be, it would be as if you went to your boss and you said, hey boss, can I have these dates off? And then the boss goes, I'm not sure, we'll have to wait and see when it gets close to that date. And then you decide, I'm gonna go ahead and make plans right now, I'm gonna make arrangements, I'm gonna spend money for it, expecting to get the day off. And then the boss goes, well, I can't give you the days off. And you go, but I've already made plans. But then the boss goes, I never said that you could have the days off. I never told you could have those days off. Just like with George Lucas, they never said to George, we will definitely 100% use these treatments. They said we are under no obligation to use these. When somebody says we are under no obligations to use something, then to me, that would ring the bells in my head to sit there and say, well, I guess they're not going to use them. Or there's a small chance that they will use them. But George Lucas was very hopeful. Now, understandably so, here's the deal. George Lucas created Star Wars. George Lucas had these stories. George Lucas was very passionate about his project. It's his baby. It's probably still his baby, even though he sold it to somebody else. Even though he gave up custody to somebody else. He put his baby up for adoption. And he gave it to somebody else, that somebody else parented his baby, but they're still his baby. I understand George Lucas had those treatments and he had this continuation of the story that he wanted to tell, and I can understand him being disappointed that those stories didn't get continued. I can understand him being upset over that. But for him to be betrayed, see, George Lucas feeling like he was betrayed isn't the same as him actually being betrayed, because there was no betrayal there. There was no betrayal there, no matter what you think, no matter how you feel, no matter how you look at it, no matter how you try to spin it, no matter how you try to paint George Lucas as the victim and Bob Iger and Disney as the monsters. The fact of the matter is, George Lucas went into a deal. He made a deal. George Lucas is a grown-ass man. He's made several deals before. He's made tons and tons of deals before. This is just another deal that he made. He made the deal. He agreed to all the terms and conditions of the deal. No promises were made that were not kept, period, end of story. So George is not a victim. Now, these same very fans that want to sit here and, talk about, oh, George felt betrayed by Disney. Well, why don't these people, and they complain about the sequel trilogies, and they complain about, you know, how George Lucas needs to be given Star Wars back and this, that, and the other thing. We want George back. But yet they seem to forget, short-term memory assholes seem to forget that the fans were part of the reasons that helped George Lucas make the decision to sell Star Wars to begin with. When the prequel trilogies came out, people like that they're trying to rewrite history. When the prequel trilogies came out, the people hated those trilogies, not all of them. A good amount of Star Wars fans, a good amount of vocal Star Wars fans, or Star Wars fans were vocal enough. Long story short, to keep it short and simple, some Star Wars fans were very vocal in their displeasure with the prequel trilogies, and they complained about it so much so that George Lucas sort of lost his desire to continue making more movies, so that helped prompt his decision to sell. So if anybody betrayed George Lucas, it's the asshole fans who are now trying to jump to his defense against Disney over fabricated accusations that they betrayed him. Had you dick shits never complained about the prequel trilogy to the extent that you hurt George's feelings and caused him to sell it, then you wouldn't have these problems with Disney. Would you have Star Wars movies? Maybe, maybe not. But you wouldn't have these problems had you asshats never betrayed George to begin with. So the fans betrayed George long before George was ever supposedly betrayed by Disney, and that's just the fact of the matter. That's just the fact of the matter right there. You can't rewrite history. That's what happened. Now, here's the deal. Another thing I want to point out, too, to all these people, most of them, because a lot of these people that are saying, oh, George was betrayed by Disney. Well, here's these assholes. Let me ask you this. Do you actually feel that way, or are you just making excuses because you dislike Disney and you kind of like George Lucas now? You know, and even though some of the people are, you know, prequel defenders, they did like the prequels. But the fact is, you know, here's, let me put this scenario out for you. Two scenarios for you really quick. One, suppose that Disney was doing a kick-ass job with the new Star Wars movies. Suppose that everybody that hates the Star Wars movies actually loved what Disney was doing with the Star Wars trilogy. Suppose Disney was doing everything right, hitting everything, you know, out of the park with Star Wars. And then they find out that George Lucas felt betrayed. What would you say then? What would you say then? Would you have this thing where go, oh, well, Bob Iger and Disney are monsters and they're horrible and they mistreated George? No. You wouldn't have any complaints about it. You probably feel bad for George, but you wouldn't be defending George to this extent. You wouldn't be getting all emotional over the whole scenario right now because you would be enjoying the movies. You would be enjoying them. You would say, but Star Wars is doing good. What's your problem, George? They're doing good. I like it. But an even better scenario would be this. Here's a better scenario. Suppose Rian Johnson came out, okay? Suppose Rian Johnson created a trilogy of movies, his own creation, an OP, his own an original property. He created it, and then all of a sudden Rian Johnson goes, "Well, you know what? I'm going to sell my properties to this studio, to Disney, and I'm going to let them take over. But I have these treatments for 3 more movies that I want them to do." And then, of course, they did the first movie, and then Rian Johnson comes out and goes, "That's nothing like the story continuation that I wanted. What are you doing? You betrayed me." You all would come out and tell Rian Johnson to sit down and shut the hell up. You're being an idiot. They were under no obligations to use your treatments because the deal you made, they bought the property, bought the treatment, it belongs to them. They could do whatever they want with it. And even when you sold them the property, they told you we're under no obligations to utilize your treatments for the continuation of the story. You would tell Rian Johnson to sit down and shut up. So why aren't you doing that with George Lucas? And as far as everybody acting like, oh, George Lucas was betrayed by Disney, this is a big shocker. Where the fuck were you years ago when George Lucas came out and called Disney white slavers? George Lucas came out and called Disney white slavers because he was upset over Disney Star Wars, over Disney owning Star Wars. But yeah, and if I recall correctly, people were kind of treating George Lucas as a joke then. They were kind of sort of mocking George Lucas for calling Disney white slavers, or at least if they weren't mocking him, they weren't making as big of a deal of it as you are now. So don't act like this is anything new. Don't act like this is the first time you heard George Lucas was disappointed with Disney or felt betrayed. The only difference between then and now is that you have somebody from the inside of Disney coming out there and letting you know, not only just somebody from the inside, but you have the head honcho, Bob Iger, coming out and sitting there saying, well, you know, George felt betrayed and maybe we could have handled things differently. He said maybe we could have handled things differently, maybe we could have approached differently, maybe we could have been a little bit more clear, but still he's within his right to do the things that he did because no promises were made to George Lucas. That's what you need to understand. No promises were made. If no promises were made, then no promises were broken. If no promises were broken, then he was not betrayed, period, in the story. You don't have to like the sequel trilogies. You don't have to like what Disney's doing with Star Wars. You can sit there and point out all the mistakes that Disney made regarding this trilogy was the story mistakes, the character development mistakes. And most importantly, the mistakes that Disney made in, attacking the fans because the fans voiced their opinions. It doesn't matter if the fans threw hissy fits. It doesn't matter if the fans turned to man babies. It doesn't matter if the fans threw temper tantrums. Some of them did, some of them didn't. It doesn't matter if the fans came out here and they made legitimate arguments and had legitimate criticisms of the movie. Disney handled the treatment of the fans wrong by attacking the fans and trying to label them as racist, sexist, and misogynist. That was wrong with Disney's part, and that will always be wrong with Disney's part. And I think if Disney's going to come out here and apologize for anything, hold on a second. It's hot in my car and I'm sweating. That's the only thing that really Disney needs to apologize for. This is just the treatment of the fans. And maybe acknowledging that the stories could have been a little bit better, but mainly the treatment of the fans is the only thing that Disney needs to apologize for. As far as anything dealing with George Lucas, they don't have anything to apologize to George for. And that's just the bottom line. That's just the fact of the matter. Anyway, thanks for watching the video. Hit the like and subscribe button. Ring that notification bell. And until next time, I catch you on the flip side.